Hi, and welcome to How They Do It, our ongoing series on everyday entrepreneurs. I'm Michelle Martin, and I'm your host for this series. Today's guest is Dee, and Dee, we already discussed before we came online that I'm going to have you give your full name as part of the introduction. He's founder and CEO of Y Center in Philadelphia. Welcome, Dee. Dee, please give us your full name. I didn't want to flub it or mess it up.
Thanks so much, Michelle, for having me here today. So, Dhairya Pujara, I'm the founder, CEO for Y Center, but call me D, that's how my friends call me.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you, Dee. That I can handle.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Dee, tell us about Y Center and what it is that you guys do there.
Okay, so Y Center is essentially a higher education social enterprise organization.
Mm-hmm.
What we mean is we really saw these global challenges at large in the field of healthcare and education, particularly in the communities in Africa and Asia.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of organizations that do that, that solve problems for the communities. We take it a step forward. What we do is we solve the challenges for the communities with the communities.
Mm.
They're very much a part of this whole process since day one. So that's the core and essence of Y Center. And the higher education piece ties into it the way all these projects that we do internationally are being offered in the form of a non-traditional study abroad program to university students.
So basically, university students get to go abroad and
Absolutely.
work with communities to help them solve their local problems.
That sounds great. Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. Yeah.
That sounds fantastic, and that's actually one of the big, I think, strands in what it means to be an entrepreneur, which is where
Mhm.
you say there's a problem
Yeah.
that I see in the world, and I want
Yes.
to do something to address it. I want to do something
Correct.
to solve it. So tell us a little bit. You mentioned the term social enterprise, and there's also the idea of
Yes.
social entrepreneurship,
Correct.
and those are kind of related terms. Can you talk a little bit about what you think it means to be a social entrepreneur as opposed to what we typically think of as an entrepreneur?
Great question. And I'll tell you why I particularly say it's a great question. I was 20 years old when I started my first company in India. That was an e-commerce online company, and the entire goal of that was one, to solve the problems for students in India to buy and sell used books so they can
Mm-hmm.
save money. And second was to become the next big Google and make $1 million. That's a classic entrepreneurial ambition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just recently, last year, I started Y Center. And with Y Center, I see myself as an entrepreneur. I never heard the term social entrepreneur before. I'm like, well, okay, so somebody introduced me to as, we're going to introduce to you the social entrepreneur from Philadelphia. And then I studied more about it. And the way I see it as being different is that in both the cases, I would rather say what's similar about them. They both solve challenges for themselves, for their communities, and for everyone in the world. The difference between entrepreneur and social entrepreneur would be the challenges and the problems that a social entrepreneur solves has a direct social impact. Every
Got it.
entrepreneur has an impact, I believe, but social entrepreneurs have that as a part of their core mission or their core or the vision that they see, that they want to create a social impact. It's the impact that defines what kind of an entrepreneur you are, not the kind of work.
Right.
Yeah,
So basically, what you're saying is, as an entrepreneur, when you were doing an e-commerce site
yeah,
and selling textbooks,
correct.
that is one way of doing business. But
Yeah,
then when you started Y Center, what you were really looking at was, now I want to create a change in the world that is
absolutely.
beyond making money and making it easier for people to buy and sell textbooks.
Yeah,
It's having real social impact in the
correct.
world.
And at the same time, it's social entrepreneur. So the entrepreneur part still exists. So you
Right.
do make money. You have to be ambitious, because if I am not self-ambition, my company is never going to grow. And if I'm going to do good, I have to be more ambitious than actually a regular entrepreneur.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because the challenges are big, and
The
so
challenges are big, and there are a lot of people who directly depend on the kind of solutions that we create.
right. So one of the things that we talk about as entrepreneurs is the idea that often you're really looking at creating multiple income streams
Right.
and multiple ways of bringing revenue into an organization, making sure you get paid and can live and all of that. And then, of course, accomplishing whatever it is that you want to do. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about what that might look like for Y Center in
Absolutely.
terms of developing those different kinds of income streams?
Sure. So Y Center, interestingly, when you first hear about a company which is trying to solve problems in Africa, the first thing that comes to your head as a social entrepreneur is it's a non-profit.
Right.
Uh, Bingo, we are not. So
Ah, okay.
absolutely,
Tell
we
us more
have,
about that.
and the reason being is, as I said, I was always an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur. I always be one. That's what I
Right.
understand. I'm ambitious, and so is my company. So the way we have our business model set up is the projects that we offer to students. Students actually pay to be a part of the program because it's a study abroad program. And we
Right.
as a company take care of all the accommodation. We give them the project training, a foreign language materials, because otherwise, when you go for a conventional study abroad program, you don't get an entire set of values or community collaboration opportunities that we give you at Y Center programs. It's a complete immersion program. So once you go to Africa and you come back, you might actually pick up a new language like I did. I now speak a little bit of Portuguese.
Mm.
How many students, how many, I speak 4.5 human languages now. How many American students who actually go to France for a study abroad do learn French? That's a missed opportunity. So with
Right.
Y Center, that's the unique value proposition, that we offer to the students who pay us. So that's our biggest revenue stream. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, we also realize that we are solving problems in Africa where a lot of money goes in the form of donation and charity. But the donation is not acting the way it should. It doesn't create the impact the way it should. With Y Center, we actually provide an end-to-end solution for our donors. So if they're putting in $20,000, they would underwrite that cost of program for the students. So
Right.
that would be a second revenue stream. And we set up projects in the community. So they can directly see a measurable outcome for the money that they're putting in. In short, a return on investment.
Got it.
Yeah.
So basically, you have organizations and others that can donate, which is kind of
Yeah.
our traditional idea of
Yeah.
how you might run something like this.
Right.
But then you also have students paying for the opportunity as a
Absolutely.
work-based learning, study abroad kind of experience.
That's correct.
So yeah, that's really interesting. So another thing that we talk about with entrepreneurs is that you end up sort of often co-creating your projects or your opportunities, and you're co-creating them by reaching out to different people and organizations and everything else. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you work with networks and work with people
Right.
and how that all kind of fits into being an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. Since last 1 year, since I've been working on Y Center, the initial reactions I used to get is, okay, a 25-year-old guy who just graduated out of Drexel University trying to do an international startup.
Mhm.
And I realized, there's so much for me to learn. That was not offensive. That was a good learning statement that I get as an entrepreneur. So number one, as an entrepreneur, you got to go out there and, get bashed by people. You want to hear that you are not going to make it.
Yeah.
You want to hear
Yeah.
that. Actually, the more you hear you cannot make it, the more it drives you if you're a true entrepreneur.
Right.
And I love putting myself in those uncomfortable positions. I go out there and I'm like, hey, I'm changing the world. And people are like, hey, you are crazy. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So
Right.
what happens really, despite hearing all of those things, if I make it to the next step, the same person who challenged me now comes up to me and sees a value in working with me. And I, as an entrepreneur, have started to believe it's not really one person. Entrepreneur is an ecosystem. I mean, there should not be any word as entrepreneur. My family has become an entrepreneur with me, the whole family. My
Right.
mom cares about, okay, did you have that meeting with the university? We talk about strategy for our company as well. So I
Right.
think I've started to work with a lot of social good agencies in Philadelphia. As much as I was trying to go away from the city when I first had the idea, like let's go to New York City, San Francisco, and that's where people meet up. That's where the entrepreneurship scene is hot. It's absolutely wrong. You have a
Right.
great idea, and Philadelphia is a city that gives you everything that you need as an entrepreneur. And we recently won the Philly Do-Gooder Award. So due to that, we started working with a creative agency who's helping us with our marketing aspect of the company.
Mhm.
I work out of Benjamin's Desk, which is a co-working startup place in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
They have offered a subsidized package for Y Center to be here because they believe in the mission and vision of the company. So I really feel, when we are trying to see this longer picture, we have to go out and seek people who have a similar vision, and it's just a matter of sharing your story. Once you do so, people come to you.
Right. So, and I think that's a huge thing, and it's something that a lot of research into startups has shown, which is if you go out and tell that story, people will buy into that mission, and then they'll contribute their gifts and the things that they have to help you build that. Because it's a lot about being able to kind of say, here's a vision, here's a mission. One of the things that you just mentioned earlier was the idea that you had to kind of put your model out there and have people say, hey, you're crazy.
Correct.
As part of doing that, did you also find that you got feedback from people that helped you refine what you were doing, that helped you kind of change your model or change how it was you were doing things?
So there are two people who tell you are crazy. Basically, the bottom line is everyone is going to think you are crazy. So forget about that part. But
so it's a good idea when they tell you you're crazy, right?
Yeah. So the first kind of people are who tell you you're crazy and leave you at that point and go away. The second one is you're crazy and I love this. Let's do it. There are things I clearly know that can help you to go to the next point. And I think the second ones are the ones you really want to stick to. And luckily, the ratio for me has been 1:3. Every one person who says crazy and goes away, I get 3 other people who say you're crazy and I want to be a part of this crazy ride.
Right.
But it really, once you get someone on board, your responsibility increases multifold because now you're obligated to make it happen, not just for yourself, but for these other people who believe in you. So it's a really important point to understand for entrepreneurs in early stage that if you're going to get someone on board, just as a collaborative partner, maybe as a co-founder, you have your obligation increases because they might not see exactly, they're not ready to go through all the trials and tribulations that you're going to go. So you gotta now focus, you gotta work with them. There might be few sacrifices that you might make. And sometimes I've seen entrepreneurs completely losing their path because they just took help from someone thinking, I'm going to go to next step with this help. Not every help is a good help. You gotta choose right help.
Right, and to what extent is that help going to be in alignment with what it is you want to do? Sometimes there are strings attached that you don't want to have to.
So the bottom line is be vulnerable. That way you can, people come up to you and it's the power of vulnerability. You show the vulnerable side of yourself. People come and offer you the help. Just do a basic assessment of do you want the help at this moment. If you're not ready to take the help, you might just end up losing your own vision. So make sure you know exactly what you want to do with this person and where do you want to go.
Right. Now, just a few minutes ago, you mentioned being at a co-working location. So, and I think a lot of people are not familiar with that idea of co-working and what that means. So can you tell us a little bit about what it is to be in a co-working space and also what attracted you to want to go that route as opposed to you renting some fancy offices yourself downtown?
Absolutely. Number one, a very frank answer to that one is I cannot afford a private office in downtown.
Right.
And I want to be here. Everyone wants to be here. It's a prime location. But it goes back to your also, this is an answer which goes back to your first question is, how do you work together with people? So Benjamin's desk is not just, co-working communities are not just where you go and you pay for it and you sit there. It's almost like getting accepted by the community. It's almost like co-creating something. Co-working is directly related to co-creating. And I think it's great because we almost have 60 companies here. And I have an expertise in taking students, not an expertise, but this is what I do, taking students to Africa and solving challenges in healthcare. But maybe I don't know the exact tools how to reach the students through social media strategy. In a co-working space, you have exactly a company, that's what they do. I just have to look across the table and I'm like, hey, this is what I do. Would you mind helping me with my Facebook strategy or my Twitter strategy? And they're ready to help because you are in that space.
Right.
So I think it's a matter of looking around. It's actually not a co-working office space. The space is not the main issue, the community, which is a co-working community. That's the important part of it.
Right. So it's a place to be able to connect with other entrepreneurs.
And the good part is you already know that everyone is hustling. Everyone is about startups. So it doesn't take a lot to make people buy in your ideas.
Right. And that is something else about entrepreneurs. You always have to be hustling.
Absolutely.
One thing I think certainly I've found for myself, and I would imagine you too, where your mind is always going, how could this be an opportunity? How can I turn this how do I leverage this? How do I work in partnership with this? And how does this fit in?
Yeah, the way I also see is that, people say that opportunity knocks at your door and grab it. But as an entrepreneur, there is no door, there is no opportunity. You have to create the door, create the opportunity, and every damn thing. You have to make it knock. Everything
Right.
you gotta do. That's what an entrepreneur. You hustle from 0 to 100, from bottom to top.
Right.
So, yeah.
Have you ever had a traditional job?
Yes, thank you for asking that.
And how would you compare the two?
Now, I would say I'm not entirely qualified to answer that, and I'll tell you why. I did my master's in biomedical engineering from Drexel University.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 2012. And after that, I got a traditional job, which I worked 9 to 5 one day, and I quit the same day, 5:30. So,
why?
Because I'm an entrepreneur, yeah, and doing a job sitting on that desk would be cheating myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last thing I want to do. I didn't go to Drexel University and get my master's just so that I can work somewhere which I don't relate to or I cannot make an impact. And Drexel actually gave me a meritorious service award before I graduated, and dots for me just didn't connect. A meritorious service award winner sitting on a desk working for a large healthcare organization, it makes no sense.
Right.
So that's the reason I quit and I took off to Africa.
Right. So it's really about how do I create my own opportunities rather than doing the tasks that somebody else is telling me I need to do.
And quickly summing up that jobs and working on your own startup, I said this recently, and I've almost been quoted about this, is that entrepreneurs don't have dream jobs. You either have a dream or a job. Go for the dream.
I love that. That's great. So let's close. We're kind of at the end of our time together. What do you think? What's your kind of best advice to someone who might be thinking that they want to be an entrepreneur, but they are afraid to do it, or I don't know. What's your best advice?
The best advice is, if you are even thinking 1% that you want to take this path, jump into it, because even the entrepreneurs who fail are known for that. You will be celebrated even as a failed entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur, there is nothing like failing. The only way an entrepreneur can fail is by not trying. So I think anyone out there who wants to do this, they fail if they don't do this. That's the only criteria. Once you do it, doesn't matter. If you get money, that's not the metric of success for an entrepreneur. That's a byproduct, which is good. Enjoy the money.
Mm-hmm.
But just starting something right there, it establishes you as an entrepreneur, and you have arrived somewhere. So I would say take the plunge, go for it, and once you do so, you have people like me and this co-working communities in Philadelphia who can take you to the next step.
All right. Fantastic, Dee. That was great. I really appreciate you talking with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yeah, so this is Michelle Martin, and this has been How They Do It, our everyday series of entrepreneurs. Or on entrepreneurs, and our guest today has been Dee, who's the executive or the CEO and founder of Y Center. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.